The rise of the tech right coalition comes for many people as a surprising phenomenon, considering the liberal origins of Californian Silicon Valley tech companies. Tech's support for the cosmopolitan liberal agenda manifested itself in its exclusive political loyalty to the Democratic Party. Even though there had been ruptures in Silicon Valley's Overton window when Peter Thiel openly expressed his support for Donald Trump in 2016, there was still a liberal orthodoxy defining Silicon Valley's political culture. Some might argue that this has persisted to this day, but there's no denying that there has been a qualitative shift in at least some tech circles regarding their political loyalties and philosophies. This political and philosophical paradigm shift is marked by the rising popularity of tech-affiliated thinkers and entrepreneurs, such as Curtis Yarvin, Elon Musk, and Alex Karp. Where just a few years ago their ideas were mainly discussed in fringe corners of the blogosphere, they now enter public discourse. Since Donald Trump's presidential victory in 2016, Silicon Valley has shifted increasingly towards political attitudes one would associate with the program of the Republican Party. It's important to note that this shift hasn't merely taken place in the economic dimension, such as low taxes and deregulation, but also culturally, in terms of DEI, woke culture, and restriction of free speech. The addition of an overbearing culture on top of bureaucratic enlargement was perceived to stunt growth and hinder innovation. This emphasized importance on the policing of speech and behavior was also perceived to be generally inconsistent with the local startup culture that seemed to thrive on as little restrictions as possible, be they economic, cultural, or political. And as the Democratic Party moved farther left by the year, some parts of the tech elite realized that their goals may not align with the new openly left-wing course of the Democrats. Redistribution through taxation and incursions on private property, of which the endgame will likely be an ever-largening US social democracy, are not compatible with technological and economic progress brought about by a meritocracy which is by definition anti-egalitarian and result-oriented. Another problem with the political direction of the Democratic Party is the institutional dysfunction it entails. Where in the past big tech companies could rely on the HR functions indirectly performed by elite universities, they now produce mediocre students, and the value of an Ivy League degree does not say as much as it used to. As a countermeasure, the tech elite and their affiliated interest groups start building their own institutions to educate the employees or CTOs of tomorrow, as is exemplified by UATX or Palantir. With these mounting disagreements, the libertarian wing needed a new political home, and with Trump's re-election in 2024, this alliance was consolidated for good. Elon Musk's endorsement of Trump following his attempted assassination in the summer of 2024 proved to be a pivotal moment. After Musk's endorsement, countless right-leaning figures of Silicon Valley followed suit. For all their shared viewpoints, there is still a rift between the libertarian right and the populists who elected Trump. The increasing economic polarization has led to an agnostic attitude among the populists toward free markets. They don't care much how this problem is solved, but that it is solved. While they do not entertain social democratic ideas, they also no longer hold the market to be holy. The libertarian right has to sell them laissez-faire policies at a time where the public's trust, even among the right, is lower than ever in the free market. Because the global free market was responsible for the large wave of offshoring manufacturing which cost many Americans, especially in the Midwest, at best their relatively higher living standard and at worst led to poverty and drug addiction. The more important point of this agreement is the libertarian right's stance on transhumanism. In this regard, the libertarian right still retains much of the spirit of the old Silicon Valley. Transhumanism is a profoundly elitist strain of thought, dominated by the billionaire tech elite, contrasting the national populists, who are mainly comprised of the sinking middle class. Where the tech elite regards human nature as malleable and perfectible through life extension, cognitive enhancement, or genetic modification, the right-wing populists believe in a fixed human nature, rooted in Christian faith and cultural history. Besides the moral and cultural incompatibilities, there is also a widening gap in the economy. Ever since Reagan, the Republican Party was traditionally known as the party of free market fundamentalism, but there has occurred a significant shift toward economic populism, which caters to the interests of impoverished Americans who are left behind by the currents of globalization. These economic policies contradict Silicon Valley's interests. One seeks to increase personal individual agency through safeguarding tech monopolies and a greater degree of freedom in mobilizing capital, and the other wants to return to the strong middle class of the mid-20th century. The difference in attitudes only finds their practical common point of agreement in a strong leader figure both factions rally behind to sustain their cause. Both factions are unable to advance their agendas by playing by the rules of establishment politics. They need a political bulldozer, and Trump serves that purpose. In this sense, the MAGA movement simply serves as the foot soldiers of an otherwise elitist strain of political thought that couldn't be more unpopular during an economic environment that resembles the Gilded Age. There is a case to be made that MAGA has no choice but to enter this coalition. Despite Trump having been part of established high-level politics for a decade now, there hasn't appeared an alternative elite ready to guide the administration toward a constructive future. Only a few dissenting voices with elite status have voiced public support for a direction different than the fusion of MAGA and the tech sector. Where the tech libertarians can win over the Trumpists is in questions of inner order. By restricting mass immigration and establishing a security state that enforces deportation laws and guarantees the integrity of property, both factions are satisfied regarding their own sentiments on the problems caused by illegal and mass immigration. We already see the tech right security state in practice through companies like Palantir by Alex Karp and Anduril by Paul Malarkey. The fusion of libertarian economics and an authoritarian security state might seem as an ideological contradiction, but in reality it can be put into practice. Many tech-right affiliated thinkers, such as Curtis Yarvin or Samu Buya, draw on examples such as Singapore or El Salvador as possible models for a future political and economic system that diverts from a process-oriented, overregulated bureaucracy to a result-oriented effective state that is smaller in its scope but more powerful in its actions. Both states prioritize economic development and social order over abstract humanitarian and democratic principles, strongly contrasting them to the liberal democracies of the West. You could argue that these two states are not comparable to a large nation-state, but that would miss the point. The central idea is not to find a perfect state and copy its institutions, but rather to create an environment where unique individuals can develop their ideas and innovate freely. Some on the tech right might argue that a myth has befallen Western societies, that technological progress is somehow given or systemic, meaning that there is a determinism toward innovation and technology. If Steve Jobs had not built the iPhone, someone else would have done it. If James Watt had not built the steam engine, we would still have had an industrial revolution. But this myth greatly underestimates the role of functional institutions and the unique individuals in or outside them which make that progress possible. The sclerotic dysfunction of modern educational and state institutions is a shared viewpoint of either factions, but the solution to these problems diverge quite heavily. Whereas the tech elite wants the most talented from all around the world to participate and contribute to the new institutions they want to create, the populists want institutions that first and foremost prefer the citizens of the nation to preserve social cohesion and stability. It is clear that the tech right is not a coherent ideology that emerged out of a natural fusion of techno-capitalism and Trumpist populism. It is a much more fragile coalition consisting of parties with drastically different views regarding humanity's future, the role of technology, culture, immigration, and foreign policy. It remains to be seen how long this union can hold and how much of a union it really is.